Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Lam. It's your first CVCT meeting. How are you finding the discussions today?
Oh, it's really a very special meeting. I think I can't think of another meeting that really gathers together top investigators and trialists and talks about the whole breadth of cardiovascular trials. So it's really very interesting.
I understand you've been involved in a number of discussions today. Are there particular insights that you've been getting from the meetings today that you'll take back into your own work?
Absolutely. So my subspecialty is heart failure. And there were a lot of discussions this morning, for example, in the comorbidity section, emphasizing iron deficiency versus anemia, emphasizing sleep-disordered breathing. I think at the same time that we really discussed how important the trials that have been done are, we were able to touch on the ongoing trials and the unanswered questions. And a huge area of my personal interest is heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, or diastolic heart failure, and it's just making me even more enthusiastic about the amount of work that we can do in that area as well. A great platform to connect with like-minded people, and I'm talking about across the board, which means I could exchange ideas with investigators who were doing parallel studies. I could also talk directly to industry partners who were looking to, for example, do trials in more women and heart failure preserved ejection fraction in Asia. So it's been really quite exciting.
So I know that that working with women is part of your own personal interest. Is that something that you could perhaps see being reflected in future CVCTs?
I really hope so. So, well, I think you're going to bring it up, but I am going to help direct the Cardiovascular Clinical Trials Forum in Asia next year. I want to really make sure that we have at least a few women on the board, and it's just a recurrent theme, even in these discussions that I brought up as a panelist. How about the women? And I think there's much more work that can be done and should be done, and it will be very interesting. A concept that I'd like to share that I think is going to grow is this concept of feminization of aging. So a theme is that with our aging society, we're going to have more and more of certain cardiovascular diseases, like heart failure, like atrial fibrillation. The feminization of aging means that in older and older populations, women get to be a bigger and bigger proportion, simply because we outlive men. So, for example, in the 80s, if you look at the strata of people in their 80s, 2/3 are women, versus looking at the strata in the 60s, where it's more of an equal sex balance. So I think that women in cardiovascular trials and cardiovascular disease is really an area that needs to be developed more. Of course, I'm entirely biased.
So can you tell me a little bit more about CVCT Asia? Why is there a pressing need for this kind of a meeting in Asia, in this particular region?
Right. The burden of cardiovascular disease has shifted to Asia. With increasing comorbidities, unhealthy lifestyles, aging societies in big countries like China, like India, we are seeing a virtual epidemic of cardiovascular diseases, heart failure especially. There is no meeting that does this in Asia, so it's an entirely unique niche that needs to be filled. And just looking at the attendance here, I think it's quite obviously underrepresented from Asia, considering that more than half of the world's population is in Asia. So it will take some time, I think, for the cardiovascular trialist community in Asia to get together. And so I think that we should have a small dedicated meeting in Asia. And as the trialists mature there, hopefully this will grow in time and we'll truly have a global meeting sometime in future where there'll be equal representation across the world.
Best of luck.
Thank you.